Hey, 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 good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good something, good everything to all of you out there. Hey, got a question for you. Do you like this name, Amazing People, Amazing Things? I'm back to doubting myself and what I choose, what I select. I need your help. Let me know. Is it ringing? Is it resonating with you? Is it appropriate for this channel? Put it in the comments. Let me know. Anyhow, today's guest is Tracy Latz. Pretty amazing individual. I mean, I could go through all of her credentials, but there are so many. MD, MS, she is an integrative psychiatrist. She's a multi-dimensional healer, and she's also served as an associate clinical facility member at the Department of Psychiatry, if I can even speak, at Wake Forest University of School of Medicine. And she holds a master's in immunobiology, a doctorate in medicine, metaphysics, and holistic healing. Like I said, the list goes on and on. A crazy, crazy, accomplished, successful individual. So we're going to learn a lot today, and I come on the ride. All right. So first of all, what we're going to talk about is that self-doubt, self-sabotage. Am I doing that to myself right now? Do you find yourself self-sabotaging yourself in success or whatever it might be? Do you put yourself down? Hopefully there are some things here that's going to help you out. Now, we also go into a second part of this podcast, all in one, and the second part is called Intura Art. So you'll find out about that. If you don't know what it is, take a look. You look it up, Intura Art. But without further ado, let's get right into it.
I'm highly eclectic, and that's why people are like, it's hard to say what you do. Even when they go to the website, Shift Your Life, they go, you talk about medical things, you talk about mental health, stress, you also talk about intuition, about metaphysical things. I was on Weird or What. They wanted to talk to me about portals. And I was like, how did you get me for that? And they said, you're the most credentialed person who's done any writing or blogging or anything about a portal. I was like, okay.
There's a great topic for later. Because, yeah, we're going to talk about that, but not today.
Fair enough.
You just opened up a can of worms. But Tracy, so thanks for joining us this morning, and welcome.
Well, thanks, Chuck. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, I am looking forward to just having a conversation, learning from you, and hopefully everybody that's watching and listening, that they're going to pick up something here, because I definitely know that whatever you say is going to be, can I say gospel? It's going to be the word.
No pressure.
Because first I want to start off with the self-sabotage, because it's so much easier, it seems like, for every single one of us, no matter how confident we are, it's easier to be negative about ourselves instead of being positive. Is that
That's absolutely true. And we doubt ourselves more than anyone else ever would. That's why this whole imposter thing became such a big topic around pandemic, I guess, because people really started realizing how they were self-sabotaging in different ways. There are really 10 to 12 core ways we set ourselves up, and one of them really has to do with lack of self-love and feeling unlovable. And a lot of that is due to our childhood experiences. And if we feel that we're unlovable, we will not change or transform any other degree that we self-sabotage, because we'll think we deserve whatever the other form is. And other ways we do is we get angry, we have guilt and shame, we feel abandoned, we feel powerless, and we really buy into that. And when we buy into it, we don't even imagine it could be anything else. And when that happens, we set ourselves up to shoot for the lowest mark. We don't step into our gifts. We don't step into the full power of who we are. And we limit ourselves in such a way that we choose relationships that may not honor who we truly are. We choose circumstances, jobs, situations, because we don't think it's even possible to succeed, or we're too afraid we're going to fail. And some people get afraid they're going to succeed, which seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, I'll have to say I fell into that category long time ago, and I realized that, and I'm still, balancing on that line. Is this part of the reason why a lot of people tend to point fingers at somebody else and blame, like a projecting themselves onto something else?
Often, yes. What we will see in other people that we judge or don't like, if we really take that metaphysical mirror and look at it, we have to ask, what aspect of that in myself do I not like? And a lot of people don't want to look at that, We used to joke in some of my varied training, but in the training in an ancient mystery school, when you became a metaphysician, you really had to say, if I have a cold, we don't just go, oh, I have a cold. We actually have to stop and say, okay, let's look at that. Why do we have a cold? What's going on? What's that cold really about? And then we begin to realize we're emotional about seeing the bigger picture, or frustrated, so we're having overwhelming emotion that then, because fluid, water is emotion, so we have drippy, and then it irritates our creative expression, which is our throat. And when you begin to get that insight, you can actually stop and say, wow, I am actually self-sabotaging, and it's not only affecting my life in other ways, it's affecting my physical health. So you begin to challenge what I call a faulty thought is, because anytime we have a faulty thought, which in my mind is the true meaning of the word sin, everyone's like, oh, sin, it's like this big, huge thing. Sin is missing the mark. If we don't understand the beauty and the brilliance of who each of us are as these energetic spiritual beings, then we're missing the mark. If we think we're unworthy, we're beautiful and worthy at all times. So
this might sound like a silly question, but when people hear metaphysical, anything meta, they're thinking it's like it's not a tangible thing. And then when you looking at your credentials, you have your, what I would say, science-based, science-backed, clinician, clinical, and then you have this metaphysical. How do you personally merge both of those together in a situation where you're trying to help somebody who is self-sabotaging? And how would you, instruct somebody to go about helping themselves?
That's a great question. I look at the whole layout, if you will, the holistic setup of who we are, because we have this physical body, but we also have the body double, which is that etheric, or where chi comes in, or if you go to an acupuncture, they're not putting needles in a physical line like a vein, artery, or nerve. It is the energetic flow through the body, the chi flow, the life force, whatever you want to call that, and it flows through the body within the area of what is the body double, which permeates this body but also comes outside of it. Outside of that, we hold the energy of our emotions, and then outside of that further, we hold the energy of our go-to thoughts. Now, this is what's in metaphysical training, which is looking at that which is bigger than this physical body. Western medicine typically looks solely at physical, what is going on. We run to get surgery, we think when we take the appendix out, we've done it. Metaphysicians would say, you still have an etheric appendix. What was acting on that, and have you addressed it? Have you looked at it and thought about it? So I look at things, having been a biologist, I started first looking at cells and atoms and how that works to make plants or animals, and what's that about between, I was very curious, quite young, about what makes things live, what brings vibrancy to that, and what's the difference between plants and animals. And I became fascinated by chlorophylls in plants versus mitochondria in humans, because in my mind they do very similar but opposite things. I think they're really cool. One is involved in creating oxygen, like a plant in chlorophyll, taking the energy of the sun to do that. And then in the Krebs cycle, which happens in the mitochondria, it turns around and creates energy out of the food that we bring in, and the CO2 that we're breathing out and the oxygen we're breathing in, thanks to the plants. So we're sort of in this symbiosis, and we've forgotten about that. We could talk about that in a whole different realm, and what we're doing to the environment and to ourselves. But after really understanding cells and then animals and plants, I ended up looking more deeply into immunology and malaria, parasites coming into the body. That was my graduate work. And then I ended up going to medical school, which took everything from cells and atoms and put it into organ systems, and how that looks when it's working in a healthy way, and how it looks when it's diseased or something is awry. So in Western medicine, we really kind of look at that. Then I was drawn to psychiatry, because nowhere else do we really take into account our thoughts and our feelings, and how that affects not only our mood, the brain chemistry, and how that affects our health. They knew in surgery or internal medicine that if we get too worried or anxious, we could have stomach upset. So we kind of knew that. And we also knew stress could cause heart issues. So we sort of knew that. But I wanted to take it deeper. And when I went to medical school and then decided I was going into psychiatry, because in my mind, that was the closest we got to the essence of who we truly are as a spiritual being, and bringing that in, really looking at mind, body, spirit, emotion, the whole shebang. And that's my curiosity, and that's my expertise, is I really sort of look at that and want to know, how do we communicate with who we truly are, and how do we get out of our ego and our head, which is that living hell of our thoughts and our emotions that fight each other. And that's why people come to see me as a psychiatrist, is, their thoughts and emotions are an issue. So to help someone work on what ways they may be unwittingly attracting drama or chaos into their life or their body, first I have to meet them where they are. Because I have people who come to me and they go, my doc sent me to you because they've been tinkering with my meds, they don't know what to do, and they said, quite frankly, you seem to be a wizard with meds. And I looked online and saw you do this other stuff, and that seems a little weird to me. I don't know that goes along with my spiritual beliefs. And I'm like, okay, fine, I can wear the, Western medicine hat, no problem, and tinker with meds. And then over time, there'll be some crisis or something that comes up for them, and they'll come in, and suddenly the window opens for them to look at something in addition to give me a pill to fix it. Because I'm not such a big fan of being the person who just throws pills at everyone and fixes it. I actually talk to my patients, and I actually teach them meditation tools. I teach them about earthing and grounding to decrease inflammation. I teach them quick tools and techniques to get into their heart, because when we get into our heart, that's the quickest way to connect with who we truly are and to realize, oh my gosh, I really am worthy of so much more than this. And that will get someone to the point where they're willing to say, maybe I don't believe I deserve to be in an abusive relationship. Maybe I don't believe anymore that everyone else's needs are more important than mine. You know, it's getting people to balance that out.
Yeah, I often think when I have conversations with folks like you is, why don't we do more of this early on, like in school, either part of education or as an elective? And not to say that. Well, I think a lot of people, if this was an option or something, they'll go, "Oh no, this is religion. We're not going to have that in school." It's not religion.
It's not. It's not. It's not.
It just listening to you. I would say if anybody out there is listening and they're going mumbo jumbo, no, really, look into this, because, like I said, it learn to have that balance. And I think everything is a balance. And I often would say mind over matter. And I seriously mean that. As an example, the other day, a friend was complaining about something or not feeling good, or, short span of life thing. And I did this. I tapped on my head and they looked and said, mind over matter.
True.
I said, if you're feeling bad because you're telling yourself you feel bad and you're saying you're sick. And go, what's your symptom? I was playing doctor. Dangerous thing about being a podcast guy. And they said, well, I just don't feel good. I know I have something. It's like, what? I don't know. I just feel bad. I know I have something. Tap on my head.
It's true. Mind over matter. You can do this very quickly. If I can show you if you'd like.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want you, everyone, to line up. We've got creases on our wrists, and you can line them up on either side. Okay, line them up, and then bring your fingers up together and see, are they even? Is one hand's fingers longer than the other? Hopefully, if they're even, then you could pick whatever hand. But if you already notice one hand has fingers that are longer, put that hand in your lap and keep the other one up. Okay? So we're going to focus on this hand that's up in the air. And now I want you to just focus on that hand and see, sense, or feel that there is this energy just flowing from your wrists through your hand, coming up, out the tips of your fingers. And it's like this beautiful golden white light, and it's filling all the cells, atoms, and molecules. It's filling all the space. It's filling in between the knuckles of each of the fingers, and it's stretching your fingers longer and longer, up, higher and higher, up towards the sky. Keep filling that hand with this beautiful golden white light, and see, sense, and feel it stretching those fingers of that hand longer and longer and higher and freer, longer and higher. And now line those creases back up and see what happens. I don't know if you noticed, mine's like a quarter of an inch longer on that side.
I was going to say, you guys, it was my left hand that was a little bit shorter, and I think she just pulled something on me, because I looked and it was like, wait a second. Before, I swear that it looked like it was a little bit shorter, but now I swear they're even.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Now,
wow.
Now, that's a Qigong little quick practice. Seeing is believing. And people go, that sounds like a bunch of loady blah, blah. Try it. Because that was, less than a minute, maybe a minute and a half. And if we can do that with focused attention and with awareness of energy, because Qigong means energy practice. And so when you work and focus on really that etheric energy, that body double that permeates this body, but also expands outside of it 1 to 3 inches, This is where we can focus on and change things that are going on in our body. It sounds nutty, but try it. Suspend belief. We're limited by no one and nothing except for what we believe is true.
Yeah, and it's that's the thing as far as believing and seeing type of thing. But I think also the older we get, we fill our minds with garbage that we hear, and then we stop believing in certain things. And so my question on this, as far as the clinical side of things and the metaphysical side, do you have? I know my answer, but I would ask you: do you have to be a believer in and I'll say the mumbo jumbo? So people will go, "Oh yeah, it's mumbo jumbo." But do you have to be a believer in that, or do you at least have to? Well, a lot of people have a closed mind, but I'll leave it at: do you have to be a believer?
You don't have to be a believer of someone's idea of religion or spirituality or whatever. So, because a lot of people are like, I'm not sure I believe. There are a lot of people who will say, I'm atheist, and I'll say, tell me what you mean by that. And often it means they're questioning, and I'll go, that's perfect, because that means you're a seeker. And a seeker means you will hear things and you'll kind of push things to the side that, I don't know. And then you'll take some things that you'll go, I don't know if it fully resonates. I'll put it on a shelf and I'll pull it back out if it makes sense later. But there are some things that you begin to know. And I tell people, don't believe a word anyone says, not even me, unless it resonates as truth for you. And then it becomes your knowing. Because something like this, where you go, I don't think this could happen, and then you try it, and then you see, wow, now that's my experience. I have a knowing that worked. And I have people go, did you hypnotize me? That takes longer. I could, but that would take longer. You don't have to buy into anyone else's belief about anything. The issue is just suspend all of your belief, whatever that is, just for a moment and go, what if? Yeah. What if? I've had people come to classes and they'll say, I'm not sure I believe in this. I said, well, can you just for today act as if, what if? And just for today, see what happens, because that allows someone to dip back into the magic that we knew as children, at some point, until or unless we were told we're silly, or sadly, if someone was abused or neglected in childhood, it can create a lot of self-limiting beliefs. But we can get back to that age of wonder, where things really are magical. And for me, looking in a cell or atoms and things, going and looking in an electron microscope and seeing a mitochondria, to me it was like, wow, it's the universe, it's magic. And so, I'm someone that tends to encourage people to dip back into that wonder and beauty and magic that we had as children, because that's where we find our joy, we find our peace and our playfulness.
I like everything that you're saying, because it's so true that, as we were just talking about, we lose that childhood fun. We lose that ability to have an open mind. So open your mind, free your mind, whatever and however you want to say it. But I think this is a perfect time, because you use that word resonate. If things don't resonate, I'm going to say this: ask that question. Don't be afraid of your physician, your doctor, or whatever. If it does not resonate, ask a question. So, and to me, that's not necessarily saying, oh, I'm not going to ask a question, I'm just going to go get a second opinion. I say ask the question. You're there, and if it doesn't ring the bell with you,
that's right. Ask. I've had people referred to me as a psychiatrist, where their primary physician or internal medicine doc said, oh, you have a cancer and you're dying, and they'll refer them to me, and I'll say, why are you here? And they'll say, my doc sent me here. I said, for what? Well, I'm dying. That, and I go, oh, do they think you're depressed? I go, well, I think they think I should be depressed. And then I'll kind of stop, and I'll say, well, let me get some information. I'll get all the information, and then I'll stop. And I'll look at them, and I'll go, do you believe you're dying? And they'll go, what do you mean? Are you saying my doc's wrong? No, I'm saying, do you believe you're dying? Because if you fully buy into that, then yeah, you're pretty much, you're almost done for. But as a friend of mine says, what is it? It's not that the party's over when the fat lady sings. It's when you stop singing, the party's over.
Yes. That resonates with me on so many different levels. We're talking about death and things like that, of maybe of a close one. And I was referring to, well, I would say that if you're concentrating so much on why, you're losing sight of the person. You no longer, you no longer have that person with you. So now they are dead because you're trying to figure out and ask why, rather than thinking about all the wonderful times and things like that. That's how I look at a tragic situation like that.
Yes, I also tell people, this is Earth School. They'll look at me funny. What do you mean this is Earth School? This is Earth School. We are these energetic spiritual beings animating these physical bodies. And we are here to learn and to learn more of who we are and who we're not. And we can tell when we are dancing in something that we are not, when the quality of our life is going down, we have to sort of stop and say, what might I be dancing in terms of my thoughts, in terms of the environment that I feel that's what I'm worthy of putting myself into. And to sort of stop and question that, not like why, because, in metaphysical training, we're taught why is a victim question. And that kind of, people go, what do you mean? It's a victim question. The question may be, what is the lesson for me in this, or what is the gift for me in this scenario? Even as bad as it seems, what is the gift? What is this here to help me understand? And then perhaps if I get it and go, oh, and begin to transform it, then things may magically, mystically, interestingly shift in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, I believe that 100%. And I think, again, this is the perfect time to let people know where they could find you. I mean, aside from, it's like, I think you co-authored like 5 books, you've written 7 scientific papers. So where can people go to find out who this person is?
Most readily either at shiftyourlife.com, or we have a YouTube channel which is Shift Your Life TV. I've been teaching these metaphysical approaches for 25 years. I've been a practicing integrative psychiatrist for 35 years. But I blend everything together, and I'll talk to patients and people about crystals, because there is a scientific basis behind the vibrational dominant oscillatory resonance of different crystals, and there's a reason they work, just like essential oils, and just like that's why these traditional medicines that have been around much longer than Western medicine. And don't get me wrong, I don't tell anyone, if suddenly your appendix bursts, we're not going to be like, go get a crystal, please. We're going to be like, go get that handled. There's a reason we have physical and alternative, this Western and alternative integrative medicine. It all works together. And that includes meditation. And the holistic lineup, meditation helps you quiet that ego mind, turn within, and be able to connect with who your higher self is, or this essence of your higher consciousness, your true essence, your soul, whatever you want to call it. My brother-in-law years ago used to say, it's the big soup, that's all I believe. And I'm like, great, let's go connect to the big soup. And once you do that, you have access to so much that is unseen here. We know now in quantum physics that everything is unseen. In quantum physics, they're now saying it's not, because way back when I was a kid, I had a pterodactyl, I'm that old, but we actually were told, of course, inside the nucleus, we had these tiny atomic particles, and that was it. And I would always try and wrap my mind around it. I'd be like, how do they, it's kind of sitting in there, and then, isn't there space in there? And they were like, pay no attention to that, like, don't look behind the curtain. But now we know that 94 to 96% of that atom is space. And we now know that what affects that space and then has an impact on that atom is our own thoughts and our own intentions and the environment. And everyone's talking epigenetics now. Hello, that's a metaphysical term, in terms of we are looking at what is the vibration of the area around us. And you can look at biogeometry, the ancient temple science in Egypt, which really looked at altering, being aware of what are vibrations around us, what is a beautiful connected to whatever that soup is, the Godhead, source, universe, whatever you understand that to be, what can shift things towards that vibration, which is what we call sacred places, the sacred spots of the world. But how can we work to connect our own self to that and to make that beautiful, healthy, vibrant vibration affect our physical self, affect our physical health, affect our emotional health, and our mental health. It's all cool.
I'm going to say a couple things, and I'm going to let my listeners, my audience, really know that I'm weird. Because I have always said to myself, and I used to say to people, there's no solid object. Everything is just vibrating so fast. So that's why you can actually, you can move through space is what I used to say, but I'm not saying, I transfer myself and I'm magically over there, as a solid. No. You're not getting it. But I always used to say that's how, because there's space, you find that right frequency and you can move through space, so to speak. That's what I always thought. And my other thing that I always but wholeheartedly believe in is, we're talking the metaphysical and things like that and grounding yourself. I use that as a preventative medicine rather than as a solution to something. So that's, and I'll say that's probably one of the reasons why I rarely get sick. I never, I don't go to the doctors, but there are certain things, like I said, if your appendix burst or whatever it might be, it's like, don't sit there and pray or don't go, it's calm, it's going to go. No. There are those situations where you've got to go see the Western medicine.
True.
But am I nuts thinking that my preventative medicine way and, shifting and being able to move through space?
Absolutely not. You're spot on, because we focus so much, the American healthcare system really is that, it is American illness care, in that, everything's set up to look for disease, to look for these things. I think we've become a little bit more and more aware of, but we have not fully stepped into this idea of wellness care, this idea of we can enhance the vibrant frequency of our own energies, our own body, our own organ systems. And this is what's been the focus of other practices going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Qigong, that is an energy practice, and it's not wait until you get sick and then you go out and you try and do it. When you do that, you do sort of a vibratory healing practice, whether it's small heavenly circuit or 4 golden wheels. You're doing that regularly. Or if you're in a meditative practice, you can picture. I had some issues going on back when I was 40. I'm now 63 in about 4 or 5 more weeks. But I would I would picture this giant ball of golden white light that was bigger around than me. And I would imagine it, sense it, call it in, and would see, sense, feel it sort of move through my body, like literally. But once I called it in, I had to get out of ego and just watch where it would go. And whenever I called it in, I could feel things shifting, and you had to avoid the idea of, why is it stopping there? I don't think I have anything there. Do I have something there? You just have to, once you call it in, you just observe it, and it moves through at its own speed and will stop wherever and whenever and continues to move through the body until it's all the way out the feet and then spins back off from whence it came. God, source, universe, Melchizedekian spaces, high vibratory, whatever you want to understand that to be. But for me, I utilize that to transform, back when I was 40, a breast issue, which I talked about in that Bye-Bye Self-Sabotage book, just to kind of help people understand that I don't tell people what to do and da-da-da-da-da. I practice what I teach, and I only add it to my toolbox when I have seen this really works, and that it works for my patients, my students, my children, my friends, myself. And then I'll share it. And then, when I share it, I try and put it out there. And my goal now is, typically women in my family historically have lived to be 99. So I figure I have about 37 more years or something to get out there and try and help as many people who are open to the idea of transforming or shifting to connect and be aware of who we all are. Because if we can raise our own consciousness and our own limiting beliefs, then we also affect the world. And if we affect the world, maybe we won't have so many conflicts and issues, because part of this raising of our own consciousness is looking at our own anger, guilt, shame, fear of abandonment, my heart's too broken, I can never get over this, and begin to transform that. And so after teaching this for a number of years, I had some of my patients and students say, I have a sister in Alaska who's never going to get here, or someone else who may not be able to afford a weekend 18-hour seminar. Could you please write this? And at first I was very resistant, because I was like, I don't know that it'll work, just people reading it. So I ended up giving it some thought and put it together, and then had a friend who had a spa in the area, and I said, could I come in and teach a class? And all I'm going to do is put up slides, show people some tools, but I'm not going to go in depth. I'm not going to, like I do in a seminar, really use that intuitive connectedness to really pick up on what the core issues of people are, to try and really, get them to push through something if they begin to have the yips. I just thought, I'm just going to put it out there like it would be in a book, where I wouldn't be there to go, wait. So I did it that way, and I found, I said, I'm going to come in and we're just going to talk about anger. And then another time we're going to just talk about guilt and shame, and had different people come in, and I saw it could work. And that's the only way that I began to say, okay, my biggest issue is when someone comes in and begins to teach people in this consciousness, spiritual, whatever you want to understand it way, the greatest harm we could do is put them in a place where they go to fear, or they begin to think even less of themselves. So I needed to make sure that wasn't going to be the case. And then we put the book out there, and then we tweaked the book. The original book had color and sound and some other things in it, and then someone else wanted to pick up the book for women, and I said, men have these issues too. and then they said, we don't believe in anything religious. I was like, what do you mean religious? They said, so we're going to take out any mention of those inner spiritual or vibrational energy centers, the chakras, which was a lot of the sound and color stuff. And my co-author went all up in arms, and I said, this could be okay to have a separate book if they let us keep the first one out there, because I practice in the Bible Belt, and I get a lot of people who come and they go, I looked up, are you Christian? And I go, anything I teach does not go against the teachings of the man Jesus, and because you end up with a lot of people with their own beliefs who instantly go to fear. And that I don't want that. So I go, let's work. I'm going to meet you where you are, and we're going to work solely there. And when or if you're ready to morph, we'll go to a different space. But then when we put more and more tools together and put a lot more Qigong tools, the Qigong emotional release technique I love because it's quicker than EFT, having been trained in EFT, and then I went to ASAP and taught the EFT practitioners that. They thought I was joking. They were a little mad at me because with EFT, you couldn't take a group in an audience and say, pick whatever you want to, any overwhelming emotion. I don't care what it is, and you don't have to tell me what it is. I don't need to know it. It's none of my business. Just rank it 0 to 10, and now forget about it. And then they all went, ah. And I moved to the next slide on purpose. And so then I said, now repeat after me. And we were tapping on 4 spots and doing that, saying Song Kong Tong Bing Xuan Yu in each of those spots. And then took a deep breath, release. I said, now go rank again. And I moved to the next slide. And you could have heard a pin drop, and everyone went, and they went, go back. Because in EFT, or emotional freedom technique, which is wonderful, the issue is you have to tap and state a reminder phrase, then you have to play devil's advocate, and it's on a number of tapping points that are acupuncture tapping points, and then re-rank and then redo. It's like rinse and repeat. But you could be working on anger and suddenly fear comes out. And if you're a therapist and you've ever used that in a session, it could be looking like things are better, and then suddenly the person's enraged because something else came up. And so what I like about the Qigong emotional release is it drops the overwhelming emotion so quickly without opening up any other overwhelming emotion. You deal with that, release it, and then find something else. And then only if it doesn't transform, then I go to EFT. But I found when I work with patients with EFT, it's a great process, don't get me wrong. A lot of the people, the students or the patients, will go home and say, because they'll come back and I'll say, did you use it? And they'll go, it really worked when I was with you, but I can't think what to say. I feel like I need you to carry me through it. And then I feel like I've done a disservice. My goal is to eventually become useless, for them not to need me, and for them to be able to transform and get it on their own, and be given a tool that goes with them wherever they are. Because, there are all these wonderful gadgets and gidgets, and I'll tell people about, you want an app that could do things? Let me tell you. But ultimately, if you're out camping and stuck somewhere and you have no electricity, I feel like I've done a disservice if I haven't given you a tool and technique that goes anywhere you go and you can use right then, and you're not relying on anyone else or anything else. And so I've worked with kids as young as 5 and adults as old as in their 90s, and that brings me joy to see them reconnect with their own inner joy.
I'm going to add a few things, and please correct me or say that I'm blowing smoke up everybody's, if I'm misguided. But the first thing I'd like to say is if people are getting lost, they're going, oh my gosh, I don't understand all these words and phrases. Where am I going? And what's this thing about doing all this tapping thing? Tapping is pretty, I'm going to use a simple term, pretty cool. So that, tapping, you know what that word is. Look it up, what tapping is. Yep, find the spots and yeah. So do the tapping, find that. The other thing too is the way I think about this is, you know, you're instructing us to imagine the light or the ball, or you see the big white ball. I'm going to add, this is from my experience, is some people are audible, others are visual. Don't expect to maybe see both things at the same time. Don't go, I feel it, but I don't see it. And then you start concentrating, where is it? Where is it? And then you lose that feeling. If you feel it, it's okay. If you don't see it right now, you will or may, eventually you'll see it. And it'll become a whole thing, if that makes sense. And it's not an immediate thing. And you use that word a couple times about, you know, practice. And we've heard practice makes perfect. So don't wait till the last minute and go, I tried it, it didn't work.
I have a lot of people who come and they say, I don't think I can do your class because I can't meditate. And I actually taught a couple of classes back in the day, and I've had people ask to teach again, which is how to meditate when you can't. Because a lot of people who come in and they're all frustrated, I can't meditate, they're seeing things, they're hearing things, and I go, I have medicine for people who see and hear things. You know, not everyone sees and hears things, and you're right, there is your go-to spiritual or metaphysical sense, and it can be clairsentience, which is clear feeling. And those are the people who typically will come in and say, I can't meditate, I get so frustrated because I don't see things clairvoyant, I don't hear things clairaudient, but they are clairsentient, clear feeling. Now, I tell people, when you begin practicing using some of these senses in meditation or as you're visualizing things, it's like going to the spiritual gym. And what happens is, you know, I can go to the gym, I'm real strong in my back and my legs. The weakest part for me is my arms, you know, but if I go regularly and practice with my arms, it gets stronger and stronger. And so typically when I have taught an 18-hour seminar, which is intense over a Saturday and Sunday, people who come in and say, I don't think I can do this because I think you're going to meditate and I can't, I'll go, if you want, by lunchtime the first day, you still can't meditate, I'll give you your money back. And they're like, okay, I'll take you up on that because you're going to give me my money back. And I'm like, bring it on. I have yet to have anyone get their money back because we go through an experience and an exercise where everyone understands pretty quickly in one quick visualization whether they're clairaudient, clairvoyant, or clairsentient. And some are already a number, and usually by the end of that 18 hours, everyone is at least 2 and usually 3, because it's practicing and beginning to not limit themselves to, like, I'm not going to be able to do this, when they begin to understand, oh, I'm not broken because I don't see what you're talking about. I don't hear it, but you know, I felt like I was going down that path, and I felt like the color of that door was this, and I felt that, and it's like, that's right, that's clairsentient. And those are the people who say, you know, I'm overly empathic. That's kind of, there's some new term for that now where everyone's like, I'm so sensitive. I'm like, please, you know, that you're not a victim. Let's just learn how to not overly connect with something and take it on. And I'll see a lot of people who have just started doing Reiki. I just started doing Reiki, and I get that. I've taught Reiki. I don't teach it as much anymore. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I'm a Reiki master. I trained some folks, but I've found a lot of people again get into their head about it. I felt like I could do it right after you initiated me into that. Okay, I felt like I could do it, but now I don't feel like I might draw the symbols wrong, or what if I call it, and they get so much in their head. So I go, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about multi-dimensional healing. Something where you could be doing it and watching a comedy. You could be doing it and people could be walking between you and the person you're working on. All good, because we get caught in our head and we start thinking, I'm going to do it wrong and the world's going to explode. It's like, no.
Yes. That is so true. Again, we've lost that young innocence and curiosity, that mind of, oh, I didn't know there was a such thing as a mistake. I was just doing it. Hey folks, let's take a quick break here. I want to say thank you very much for sticking around and listening to the first half of this podcast on self-sabotage. Now we are going to get into the second part of our discussion, which is going to be that Intura art. So be sure to stick around for that. Now, I do want to ask you, if you're not following, please follow, like, share, subscribe, whatever the word is out there today to use. But it really helps with whatever algorithm is out there. Now, the other thing too is, I've always said this, if you're a pet owner, please be a responsible pet owner and have your pets spayed or neutered. All right, let's get back to the show. If you don't mind, I'd like to shift gears a little bit and go over to, I believe, Intura art, because that also can help you release, I believe, some stress, get out your feelings, your emotions. And the way I look at it is, now you can see what you had inside because you put it out on the canvas, and you're looking at, oh, that's inside. I might be totally wrong, but that's how I view it.
No, you're right. Intura art, or intuitive art, is a process where, to open up the flow of things, we start with connecting with the emotions that keep us stuck from being really able to connect right away. So the first thing we do is we do sort of a clearing where we connect with our anger, our guilt, our shame, or whatever. And we actually, hold on, I actually have some here because my daughter and her friends came and we did an impromptu Intura art class 2 weekends ago. But I often use something called a mindfold. I don't own stock or anything, but I love these. The mindfolds do not put pressure on your eyes, but it will literally seal out all light. It's better than any sleep goggle or whatever that I've ever seen. You can do a blindfold. You could close your eyes, but I found there are some people who are like, tell them to close their eyes and start drawing, and they're like,
yeah, start peeking.
I gotta peek because I'm in competition. What if it doesn't look pretty? It's like, oh, stop.
I need to make a perfect square. Stay in the lines.
I
gotta peek.
And it's nutty, but we also teach people that it's not like using a pen and going straight down. You're not drawing with chalk like this. Hold on, I have some chalk here. Good grief. We have chalks that are square, rectangular, and they're actually pastel chalk. This is like a harder pastel chalk. I love these things. Often I'll break this because that's a little long to do, but people will draw, they're not drawing like this, because then people are like, oh, I'm an artist, and I've got all this training, and I'm like, you're going to struggle with this, honey, because you're going to go on the edge of this, flat on the paper, and you're just you have no idea what you're doing. So we start with releasing any overwhelming emotion, and we take it light first, and we use not really good paper to start with. We use just construction paper, because I say, why would you hold on to this? This is your negative stuff you're letting go of. So we'll get them to connect with it and have them have a couple of chalks off to the side, and then with eyes closed, once they connect with that feeling, they are to let that feeling just kind of bubble up and like feel these ropes or tendrils of the negative energy from that we were holding way low in our belly, and come up, just let go at the tendrils that it's set and tied up the heart, binding it, and then let it flow out and down the arms, out your hands. And I'll say, when you feel that warmth or buzzing or fullness in your hands, that energy is coming out now. Grab the chalk and let that energy just go out on the paper. And I'll tell them, you will know when that color you're using is done. It'll kind of, the flow will kind of diminish. You'll set it aside and then feel for your other chalks you had. You'll be moved to pick up one, and the energy will start flowing again if you were to continue. And you'll do that, release it all over the paper. And I'll tell, because some people will get them and just go, I'm like, oh no, you've got to like really release, you're limiting yourself, I don't know. And once they release, they'll feel when it's done. And when it's done, I'll be like, you can take your mindfold or your blindfold, or if you don't have any of those and you want to open your eyes, you'll open up. Don't say anything until everyone else is done. Wash your hands, and then you look at it at the way that it is. You turn it every single way, but you begin to see what's in it. And it's fascinating, because when we're letting go of anger, maybe dating back to childhood, or guilt or shame or sadness, you will see figures of people or beings or animals in there. I had one person that had a lot of anger, and there was a gun. There was like this screaming face, mouth just rah. It's amazing what comes out, because it's the energy showing you what's going on and what you're holding in you and what fueled this. Now, after you release, and we go through a couple of times, I carry people through a visualization where they go into the dark recesses of an abandoned castle, and they end up in the murky, place where all the chains are, and just in the dungeon, and they find all of their really old, nasty stuff that they never wanted to look at emotion-wise, and they allow it to come up, and then I say, this is your chance to let it go, and they let it all go, and it's so powerful. Worked with a group of women in Lebanon, my co-author and I, we flew there and worked with them doing some of the bye-bye self-sabotage, drop your baggage, love your life tools and techniques for beginning to let go of things. And then we followed it up with an intro art class. And what came out even more fully on that paper was a lot of what these women had held on to from growing up in a war-torn city, where they would go to school, and there were people from various faiths and different sides of that battle that would be at school. They'd go home, and they'd come back, and all of a sudden 2 or 3 of their little friends weren't there, because during the bombing they had been killed. So they were holding on to all of this, and it just came out on the paper. Now, you let that go. Once you have sort of released a lot of these things that we think we have to put a lid on our emotions, and when people talk with me and I show them the holistic lineup, I look at the emotions as our inner child, and I have a little figure that's like a little fairy, figure with a little flower it's holding, and then I have next to it the inner adult, the thought body, who's looks like dressed as a physician in a white coat and very, very serious, looks like Freud-like, but very tall and skinny. And that our inner adult will put a lid on our emotions, because we think we can't have that out. We can't have that drama, that anger, that fear, that guilt, that shame, or we'll be a mess. So the lid's been put on the kid. What the Intura art allows them to do is to let that emotional one express in a safe way out on the paper, and then look at it, and we interpret it. We turn it every single direction and interpret what's in that direction. We turn it around, because sometimes there are things to know on every direction. And then once you're all cleared, then we go to some of the cooler stuff that everyone's like, oh, it's so beautiful, which is the Intura art, like this, which is connecting with divine female and in meditation. And this was connecting with what's called yandi, which is a psycho-spiritual process where these a person looks at the core faulty beliefs that they've held on to in this lifetime that has made them limit their creations. And the beauty of this is you can connect with the process, you can connect with the concept, you can connect with a loved one, you can connect, and you do that. We teach people in the class how to connect with a partner in the class, preferably someone that they've never met before, because otherwise people will be like, well, of course a dolphin showed up in that, even though their eyes were closed, because they know that I love dolphins. Okay, and it's just so much fun, and that's what made everyone want to meet at my house. Can we get together, Mom, and have all my friends come? Yeah, come on, let's do it.
I got a question about that, because you mentioned color, but you have your mindfold, not the blindfold.
Right.
For some of you, it's a blindfold, but this is a mindfold.
Yeah.
You mentioned color. So with your eyes open, do you say, here are the primary colors, or do you say, here's your black, here's your red, here's your whatever, and you lay them out and tell them, remember where those colors are? Now, when you feel the time to grab another one, put that one back in its place, grab that other one, and go. Is that how that color part works?
I hesitate to take this all up and move it, but I have over at my art desk where I typically work right now, I created my formal dining room has become an art space for this class. So here I have like dishes of different colors, and I would tell people, just pull out all these different colors, put it next to you, mix them up if you want or whatever, because you should sense which one. So, some people will be like, oh, I'm going to I think I'll need these colors, and set them there. I've watched people, and I've been known to play with people in a class at times, because there was this one woman I could tell was peeking out, and then she figured, and she was getting everything, and she was doing exactly what you said. She was lining them up. So I kind of watched her do that, and then was carrying them through a meditation, and I slowly moved over there and just took all her colors and switched them all around. And
that's great.
And suddenly she was like, wow, this is different. I said, yeah, it is different, because I made you get out of your head. I will make sure when I'm teaching a class, because if they're choosing a color of the paper, because some of the pads have different color choices, and if they've chosen, say, a blue background color, and then I look and I see what they've pulled out is nothing but blues or blacks, I'm like, they're not going to see what that is. So I will go over and move, or some people will feel over, and they'll be moved to pick up one color, and they'll move at that color, and they'll come over and put that color back, and then they'll go like this over, and they'll pick the same one up. And when they've done that, they're about to do it the third time. I'm like, they're going to be very disappointed. I will go over and I've been known in a class to pull that color out of their hand and put another one in. Stop it. Or people will early on, because if it's a beginning class, it's very different. If it's one where they've done it once, they're like, now I want to take it deeper. I worked with a group of animal communicators once, and that was so much fun, because everyone had animals they were working with on their phone. They were like, yeah, I have a picture. I can't wait to do this. And I would be like, okay, everyone pull up the animal you're working with. But, what I then said was, okay, pair off with somebody. Now you give your phone to them and they give their phone to you, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you're going to connect with an animal you know nothing about. They're going to connect with yours. And once you connect with them, you sort of lift up in that, and you ask whatever the question is. You can ask. I've had people ask about loved ones who have passed, and they're like, I never got to say goodbye. I really wish, they could tell me what they would want me to know. And I'd be like, really? And I'll say, do you have a picture of them that has a good picture of their eyes? I said, I can sit down, and when I feel like that time is right, I'll sit down, pull up the picture, and connect, and sort of see what's going on, and then just the energy comes out. I love that. I'm a trained, because of Ancient Mystery School, I'm a trained medium. But do I want to go around again? Let me do a reading for you. That's wonderful. People do that, but I would rather teach people how to do that for themselves. A, and then B, what I like about the intuitive art is it's not me connecting and me going, to me that means this, and then I'm telling them this is what I sense, because it's my interpretation of it, and then they hear what they hear and they interpret what they interpret from it. So it's like that old telephone game, where passed down the line, did the real message get kind of messed with? What I love about this is it's the energy that's coming through. It's not me saying it. It's there, and it's there for them to see. And the beauty of this is the pictures, once they come out, continue to change to answer whatever the question is without ever touching it again. And people would be like, I don't know that I believe it. I'd be like, okay. But then they'll look, if they're in for a class, they'll all of a sudden reach out and go, it's different. And I'm like, yeah, it is. What are you seeing now? Now I see this. I said, well, what were you asking? And if it was a loved one who's passed, it may be, what did they want me to know? I had one person who had sudden migraines. And, what I tried to do, and sadly, a lot of people think if they get this book, The Mystical World of Ventura Art, they'll think I'm going to tell them how to do this there. And sadly, I don't, but it's because if I told them do this and they don't understand it, they're going to go, this doesn't work. What this book was about was to show people how you can use it, which is, to me, I have so many people who will come and go, I went and took this class and that class, and I feel like I can do these things, and I've expanded my intuitive development, and I feel like I have understanding. But now I feel like I can't find the guru, the next teacher who can take me to the next level, and I'll start grinning, and I'll go, it's you. And they're like, what? I'm like, it's you. And what I love about interior art is once they are now, I call it cleaning the pipette. Back in biology, we had those glass pipettes and they'd get dirty and they wouldn't work so well. And I see that as when we need to transform those emotions that are keeping us kind of blocked up and those thoughts that keep us, it's like having a dirty pipette. So I use the tools from the self-sabotaging release to help people clean that up so that they can connect more with who they are, connect and get answers more. They eventually have a temple of wisdom they can go into. But then I say, now maybe you're ready to start with interior art, because now when you're that clean pipette, you can connect to places. You can ask, what's the most important thing for me to know on my spiritual journey? And it'll tell you right now, and it'll tell you afterwards. You could also ask, what's my next step? You could ask, how can I improve my health? And the energy will flow through there. You'll feel it come out on the paper, and it'll keep changing. It'll show you right now, and then you look back in a week, it may be different, because now maybe you've shifted something and you need something else. And that's what I love. When the woman came who had migraines and said, she wanted me to do a reading on her. I said, I could do that, and it could be what I pick up on. I said, or if you'd like, send me a picture, a good close-up just of your eyes. I'll connect with that, and I will ask, what's the most important thing for you to know about these migraines? And what came out was fascinating. I sat down and I did that. It came out on the paper in about 2 minutes. And I looked at it and I was like, whoa. I could see off on one side, it looked like these priests kind of coming downstairs, and two behind one, and then something kind of coming at that person's head. And then I could see the person who had asked me to do this kind of in the center of the drawing, that had this energy just like out of the side of the head, but also this being to the side with a long wand-like thing trying to help, and a timeline at the bottom. And I said, I'll take a picture of this and I'll send it to you because you can look at them digitally. They're just as powerful. And I said, have you just met someone that's come back into your life or that seems real familiar? Oh my God, how did you know? I met this woman like 3 weeks ago. And we both were like, it's like I've always known you. And I go, okay. I said, what I'm seeing here is someone in whether you believe in it or not, a past life who killed you by either striking you in the head or threw you downstairs and you hit the head, but they were trusted people. It looks like in a monastery. I said, this sounds weird, but this is what's on the paper. I don't know what else to tell you. And the issue is reconnecting with this person is for you to let go of this. And she said, that's funny you say that, because after I met her, she kept reaching out, and it's like every day, what are you doing today? It was like, it was cool. We knew each other. It felt like we were really close, but then it's like she wants to do everything I do. And I'm kind of like, this is kind of weird. And I said, well, you have a choice. And she goes, I'm going to distance myself. I said, okay. So she did. She distanced. She just kept saying, I'm busy. I can't do stuff. She says, I'm not going to be ugly about it. I said, you don't have to be. And so she just distanced. And then she reached out and she goes, oh my God, the migraines are gone.
I'm gonna. So when you're just giving me the description of what you read from the picture, my thought went to, oh, this person just watched these are the originals. Just watched the original Omen and Exorcist, because I remember on the Omen striking down the stairs, and the priest. I was going, oh, they just watched the Exorcist and the Omen.
Yeah, it's fascinating what comes out. I love it when people want to look at pets, and because what comes out is always hysterically fun or very loving if it's a pet that's gone. I was pet sitting for my daughter's cat many years ago, and I love that cat, Jasper. He's like my buddy. And so he was over and he was hanging out, and we would peek around the corner at each other, and we would play chase and catch, try and run after each other, and then I would stop and he'd come running after me, and so we were just playing. And then all of a sudden he kept coming up and wanting to play but wouldn't, and then come up and want to play but wouldn't, and I was like, what are you doing? So I kind of connected with him. I went over to the art table and did it, and it was so funny because you could see him in the middle, and he's got a paw and he's pointing up at the top corner, and the top corner is a lion's head where he's like, I'm a lion, and it was, I just saw that and I just started laughing and laughing. Anyway, it's just great fun. You can use it to investigate. In some of the training, when I was being trained in how to do some of this, they actually came in and gave us a picture of a house. And I looked at it, and instantly I looked at the person. I said, I don't want to do this. She goes, oh, Tracy, come on. Just don't tell anyone. I said, I don't want to do this. And she said, come on, you got to do it. And then she said, you need to learn how to do this. I said, I know how to do this. I don't want to do this. And she goes, you're going to do this. And I was like, fine. And so they passed around this picture of this house, and then a picture of the kitchen of this house. And the whole time I'm just like, ugh. And they go, okay, now see what you pick up. And I immediately did something down here, and I pulled off the thing and looked, because I was so mad. And down in the bottom corner, that's all I'd done on the page, was an absolute perfect picture of a man with a goatee, a little bit of a beard, and I just went, and the person next to me pulled their thing off to look, and they looked, and they went, oh my God, and the teacher looked at us like, shh, and I just took it, and I scratched it out. I was so mad, and she could keep going, Tracy, so I put this down and did all this stuff. And when I was done, I was still so mad. And she says, what are y'all picking up? And they were like, oh, negative energy. And I said, somebody killed people in this house. There were 2 kids here, there was a woman here, and it was a man. And we all start talking about that. And I was like, why are you having us do this? Because, they wanted to teach us how to do investigative things as well, which you can do. You can connect with places. I connected with the Great Pyramid after going there and spending an evening inside with a group of people kind of doing different ceremony and things. Fascinating what can come out of those, but you can connect with people or places or situations. I remember when she actually said, yeah, this is the house that this famous wrestler who got all hyped up on steroids and then went crazy and killed his family. And I just sat there and I was just, and when they showed the picture, the woman next to me goes, oh my God, that's the exact picture she had. That's the face on the bottom right of the page. And the teacher's like, let me see it. I go, you're not going to see it because I scribbled it out. I was so mad. And I went up to him. I said, look, I get why you guys are teaching us, because you want us to, because some people go through intuitive training to help with cold cases and things. And that's cool. That's cool. But I said, please, in the future, when you do this, do not do this as the last meditative thing that we do after connecting with high, beautiful energies all day, because this was the last thing we did tonight, and then we were going to bed. And trust me, when you sit and dance in that kind of energy, because we're sitting here talking about how what we focus on and the energies and vibrations and frequencies can have an effect on us. I said, I get it. If you're going to do this, do it early in the day and follow it by light and bright stuff. Do not sit in this dark stuff. So,
yeah, sure. You just open the door to the darkness and you're going to bed. And what are you going to be living?
That's right.
Or sleeping?
That's right. You're going to the astral. You're going to visit.
Yep. Tracy, I'm going to use your word, fascinating. This has been fascinating. So I want to ask you again, where can people get in touch, and what book would you guide them to? One of your intuitive art books, one of your intuitive art books, and one that you've written. Where is someplace that people can start?
If you're wanting to get quick tools and tips, as well as intensive ways without reliving trauma, to be able to sort of let go of things and move forward, bye-bye Self-Sabotage, Drop Your Baggage, Love Your Life. It's on Amazon. Just about everyone's on Amazon. You can do those. You can read the meditations. There's also a way to download some of those meditations if you're like, I can't read it and just do it, because we say, hey, you can record yourself, carrying yourself through it and listen. But that's one way of doing that. For people who just say, I want a class, but I'm not going to be able to, you're not teaching when I'm ready to. And when I do teach, if people sign up for a newsletter, it's on and trust me, you're not going to scam me by anybody, because I write those. I don't have time. You're lucky if you get a newsletter from me once every 3 months. Sorry, but yeah, because I have to do those, and I'm very busy doing things I enjoy. But if you sign up for a newsletter there, anytime I or my co-author are teaching, and we teach out in Sedona, I teach here in North Carolina, and we have been known to travel. If people have a group that they want us to come teach, reach out, because that's how we ended up in Lebanon. We went out to California once because there was a big group of people who wanted us. I respond to need. I'm not here just to talk because I like talking. I like to help. So if you sign up for the newsletter on the front page of our website, shiftyourlife.com, that's how you can find out about it. We also have online class for someone who's like, I'm not going to go with a group of people. We actually videotaped hours and hours of us teaching the bye-bye self-sabotage, or the Shift Your Life signature class became this. We also actually filmed when we taught in Paris to some of the Hay House authors who wanted to sort of do some stuff. we taught intuitive art. We taught an intro art class. So we do have a little introduction to intro art class online. I love to come and teach intro art. I just love it. But you can also, if you look for this book, The Mystical World of Intro Art, it is on Amazon, but please, no hate mail, no energetic hate mail my way when you're like, she doesn't tell us how it's done. I just told you here how it's done. But I would not want to put that in a book because I'm not convinced people would let go of things. And then they're going to say it doesn't work. And I tell you, this intuitive art works. But you have to be real and let that pipette get cleared for it to do. And it's a joy because now you can get info about anything. And that's cool.
And I'm going to ask you and put you on the spot. I'm not going to make it, and I'm not going to say that this is the one way or the easy fix or that it's as simple. But in 30 seconds, what is the one thing that somebody could begin doing now to get out of that self-sabotage?
The one thing, the easiest thing, and I teach it to every single one of my patients, art students, is the loving, compassionate benefactor meditation and exercise. And, you know, I've taught it to people. I do headspace telehealth with a few folks, and I've carried people through it there, and then they come back and go, I've looked for that. It was so helpful. How can I find it? And I was like, you know, let me carry you through it again. It's written out in the book, and I just want to hear your voice. So I kind of ended up doing that on the Shift Your Life TV channel because of this one person who's facing a court child custody thing. And she's like, that's the only thing that helps me be centered and calm and not be in fear and makes me feel connected right away. And that's spot on. It's opening up that heart center. And so that is, all those videos are for free on the Shift Your Life TV channel on YouTube. And we also have the tapping there, both EFT demo and the Qigong emotional release.
There it is, you guys. Shift Your Life TV on YouTube. Great place to start. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck.
And if you say, well, I don't like reading, I don't want to, I'm going to say, at least go and look at her credentials. That's great reading right there. You'll love it. Then you're going to want to find out more about Tracy and more about what she's talking about. I mean, I'm not kidding. You just look at the credentials and you that raises curiosity in a person such as Tracy. So go do that and get started.
And thank you.
So thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Chuck, for having me here today.